The impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Benton. It is vampires, the host of damned souls of telepaths.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true god?
He's dead. Can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
Hi everybody, this is Irene and Mark from the Paranormal UK Radio Show, the flagship show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And I'm here tonight with my co-host, Marcus Johnson.
Well, first it's Mark, then Marky, then Markle Farkle, now Marcus. Yeah,
yes, Marcus.
Didn't know there were so many different variations of my name.
Yeah.
Of course, I've heard you call me
I could give you a few others as well.
Oh, you have. You have. Off air. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I have. Certainly. Anyway, go on.
Go on?
Weren't you going to congratulate me for opening in one hit?
Yes, I am. I was very impressed. You did that like you knew it by heart for a change.
Yeah. You know, it's only been how many years now? Yeah, I don't know how many years I've been working with you on radio shows, but on this particular radio show, 3-4 years we've been going, and I have done it tonight in one go without all these different takes and bad language in between.
Yep. I'm very proud of you.
And so I'm proud of myself. Very proud of myself.
So how is everything going over there on your side of the pond?
Very hot. Everyone's kind of finding it a bit uncomfortable at the moment, but you can't complain because this is the UK, and this part of the UK is Wales, and Wales is known for its rain.
So is it raining or is it hot?
It's hot. It's hot. I think it rained last night because, but going by the plants, but yeah. But 2 days ago, it was peeing down. I mean, it absolutely flooding down. And now it's back, you know, it's like we're out in Spain or somewhere now at the moment. It's so lovely out there. And the garden's looking fantastic.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's pretty hot here too. Although we had a scare Friday night. We had a thunderstorm come through. And
what happened?
A bolt of lightning either hit the house or it hit the ground right outside the house. All I know is my wife and I were downstairs watching TV, and it all happened simultaneously. All of a sudden, there was this big arc flash and a pop inside the foyer for our front door. It's like one of the sockets just blew out an arc of electricity, and then at the same moment we saw the flash and then the loud crack of thunder right outside the door. So it hit the ground or hit the house in some way, then ran through the house and caused the socket to spark really bad.
That's why they say don't watch the television in a thunderstorm. Don't you have lightning rods on your house?
No, you don't really need them around here, but now it's something I might invest in because it scared the crap out of me. We had to call the local fire department just to come in and check everything out because I can't see my roof, and wanted to make sure that it didn't hit the roof or we had damage or a fire.
Yeah.
But luckily...
Well, I saw the photographs that you put out on Facebook, and I must say, Mark, I thought it was pretty unreasonable for you to, when all this was going on, to leave your teddy bear lying around in the hallway.
That wasn't mine. That was Molly's.
No, it was.
That was Molly's. That's my beagle. In fact, she was so cute, the firemen were standing in the garage, and she comes walking out with that teddy bear in her mouth and drops it at the one fireman's feet.
Did she?
Yeah. Yeah, she liked the fireman.
Yeah, with Gertie, it'd be a bloody football. Yeah.
Yep.
She's not into cuddly toys, she's only into footballs. Everything was all right.
Yep, everything was
no
fine.
No damage to the house, nothing.
Nope, I had an electrician come out yesterday just to double check everything, and everything was fine. He replaced a couple of sockets just to be safe, but yeah, so far it was just a nice scare.
Yeah, but I like watching the lightning.
Oh, I love watching lightning. I love thunderstorms, but now when they get that close, oof.
Yeah.
Now, I also wanted to put out there for everyone, last week I asked for prayers for my sister-in-law who had cancer, and unfortunately she passed away on Friday. So we knew it was coming. She'd been struggling with it for the last 3 months. It was a very aggressive stage 4 cancer throughout all of her body and her brain and everything, and so we knew it was a matter of time, so at least she's at peace.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for him.
Still gutty, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for my older brother because he went through a lot, taking care of her and dealing with all this. At least now he has a break. But to have your spouse die on you, can't imagine that. Now I've had
that's a shame.
Now I've had a couple of my exes die, but thankfully years after.
your exes.
Yeah, you know that phrase. All my exes live in Texas. For a while that was true, but then now all my exes are 6 feet under.
Oh, don't be wicked. Don't be wicked.
Why not? They claimed I was the Antichrist anyway.
Well, I've been with the same man for I don't know how long now. I can't think how long. Yeah, but he's wrinkled up and prudy now. So
being with you, that will do it to him.
He's been working hard in that garden today. He really has been working hard. He's been, that's the one thing about COVID. I am getting things done around the house.
I still have projects I need to do. I'm just suffering from a startling lack of motivation.
Yeah. You wouldn't be like that if you were with me, I tell you. I've got an answer for that one. Boot up the bum. Well,
I think it's time to get on with this show.
Yeah.
So
I've said a naughty word, haven't I?
What, bum?
I said a naughty word. I said bum.
Yeah, that's not so naughty over here. You say bum over here, we think of some homeless guy on the street.
Oh, no. All right, then. Okay. Come on, get on with the show.
Okay. Well, we're happy to welcome tonight one of the members of the Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue. So we want to welcome Stephen Williams to the program. How are you tonight, Stephen?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here tonight, Mark and Irene.
Well, thank you for coming on. And
I tell you, Mark, Stephen, it's nice to have someone else here, so I don't have to talk to Mark.
Okay.
Irene, make sure you're talking into the microphone because we can't hear you when you're...
All right, I'll say it again. It's nice to have you here, Stephen, so I don't have to talk to Mark all the time.
Okay.
I am talking into the microphone.
Well, you weren't at that moment. What did you do? Turn your head to go have another grape?
No, it's this boom thing up here.
Ah.
I'm moving it out of the way. Yeah, last week it came off and hit me on the head right in the middle of the show.
No, and did you deserve it?
No.
I think you did.
All right then.
But
okay,
I always think you did.
Too.
So yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Yep, Stephen. Sorry you have to put up with us here, but so let's talk a little bit about your group, Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue. How did your group come about, and how long have you guys been working together?
Well, I formed this new group in October of 2018, and so we've been working together, about a year and a half. And it came about after an experience that I shared with one of my team members at a public mediumship platform demonstration. And a young child who was seen around me, a spirit child who helped rescue back in 2007, actually went up to one of my team members who was doing a demo and kept poking her on the shoulder, and she was able to describe her perfectly. People see her around me a lot. So I knew that there was time to get a new team together. I'd been working solo for a while. So I invited, that was Kayla Bales. She's one of the mediums that I work with. And then about 6 months later, at a spirit rescue circle that I was conducting, another person came along named Jennifer Brooks. And Jennifer was seeing someone over my left shoulder. I noticed that she was looking over my left shoulder a lot during the spirit rescue circle. So I went over and talked to her after that, and she was seeing my great-grandmother. So it just was natural that we all got together and formed kind of a power trio to do some spirit rescue work. So we've been doing that for about 1.5 years now.
Oh, that's nice that you saw your great-grandmother.
Yes, it was.
Who do you think sorry, Mark.
Go ahead.
Who do you think the child was?
I know who the child is. She, back in 2007, when I was introduced to spirit rescue, I was in St. Augustine, Florida on a family vacation, and I encountered this little girl. It was really kind of my first major psychic or mediumship type experience. And I had a knowing of what she looked like, what her name was, exactly what she looked like. And I had some equipment with me. I had a little EMF meter with me, and as I would make these statements about her, she would respond with equipment. So I came back, that was in July of 2007. I came back in September to speak at a conference. And I met a medium down there named Linda. And when we went over to the house, I hadn't told her anything about this little girl. She could see her on the front porch of the house. And then she went back later that night and helped her cross over. So she was kind of my introduction to spirit rescue. And she will actually come to us when we're working with any child spirits. This little girl, Alice, will show up, and she helps us in our rescues now.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's very...
Sorry, Mark, I interrupted you.
Yes, as always. What would you consider yourself? And of course, we hate labels, but if you're going to label yourself, what would you consider yourself to be? Intuitive, psychic? What would you say are your abilities?
Well, the clairs that are strongest for me are clairsentient and claircognizant. Mm-hmm. I also have had clairvoyant and clairaudient experiences, but they're not as common for me or as come around as much. Mostly I feel I can go into a home or a site and feel the energy of spirits. And like with Alice, that was a claircognizant type experience where I really knew I could see her in my mind's eye. I knew exactly, how old she was, what she was, how she was dressed, and so forth, and her name. So I have a varied, experience with all the clairs, but clairsentience is my strong suit. So I guess I'm a medium.
Yeah, for those people that don't know, that's sensing and knowing. Sensing, feeling, and knowing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, have you always had these abilities since you were little, or did they, come in at a certain age?
They actually did not manifest until much, much later after I was past the midpoint of my life. And they started when I was actually in a haunted location, and I started feeling like this tingling sensation around my crown chakra. Mm-hmm. And by working with different mediums over the past 18 years, I know now that if I feel on my right side, it's masculine energy. If I feel on the left side, it's feminine. If I feel it at the top of my crown chakra, it's more like guides, angelic type energies. And then actually, if I feel it going down the back of my neck, that's the negative type energies or darker energies. So it's almost like they've kind of mapped out my crown chakra to give me a sensing way to sense the energy and distinguish between the different vibrations. I can also tell if they're earthbound or crossed over by how high or high low I feel that sensation on my crown chakra.
So when you go into an investigation, let's say you get called into a case, What types of cases do you usually work on? Is it a residential, or somebody's calling you into their home because they're having experiences?
Yes, most of them are residential. We do have some businesses that contact us when they're having, issues. But I would say the bulk of our work is in residential situations.
And when you go in, do you use just mostly your own abilities and intuition, or is there any other types of equipment that you'll use?
The only other things that I take in are an EMF meter, and I've discovered over the years that sometimes you run into situations where there's excessive EMF fields, maybe caused by bad wiring, or maybe transmission lines are nearby. So I always take a meter like that in case we need to check and see if the client's being affected by bad wiring, like near where they're sleeping or something like that. And then the other thing I do is always take an audio recorder and just document the investigation. Other than that, that's all we take. And my mediums, I never tell them anything when we go into a site, so they go in totally cold without any type of factual information. And they just basically take in notebooks. And as they are drawn to certain areas of the site, they will work independently of each other. And then at the end of the time that we're there, we'll all compare notes and see if we come up with the same information.
You don't use cameras then?
No. I used to pursue the evidence part of this work, but to me, it's more a calling now to go in and do some counseling and to try to effect a positive change and help any spirits whom we encounter there to be able to release and transition. So the evidence is really not important to me anymore.
See, and that's kind of the same route I've gone. Being in this, I started investigating in about 2001. When I first moved here to New Jersey, the house I first lived in had activity. And, I joined a ghost group. I was with them for a while, and then I formed my own group in 2004. And North Jersey Paranormal Research, and we did that for over 10, 12 years until things fizzled out. And the one thing that started bothering me, because when all the ghost shows came out, and right now we're in a glut of ghost shows. In fact, I don't even know why they bother calling it the Travel Channel anymore. They might as well just call it the Paranormal Channel, because every show on the Travel Channel now is paranormal related.
Right.
But the only ones, I have to admit, the only one that I still really watch religiously, because it's my guilty pleasure, is Ghost Adventures. Even though they're a little bit over the top, I've always felt that at least what they're presenting, they're not faking anything. It's mostly genuine. It's just, they're sometimes just way over the top, overly dramatic and wrong. But now that the Ghost Hunter team is back with not one, but two different shows, one half of the team has Ghost Hunters and the other half has Ghost Nation. And both pretty much the same as the shows always used to be. And it's always about collecting evidence. And they always talk about, we got to go in and help these people. And after, we would think the same thing, going in, to go into a client's house, they're afraid, we got to go in and help people. And I realized after a while, because we didn't have any intuitives or mediums on our team. It was just, we had a lot of scientific people. I had, mechanical engineers and police officers and very, analytical type of people. And we used all sorts of different equipment. And we would capture a lot of great evidence. And then in the end, we go home. We share it with the client, talk to them a little bit, and go home, and they still have to live with it. And that started to bother me. And
that's when you joined Spirit Rescue International.
Yeah, because we
had the nurses, the doctors, the counselors. We had all sorts.
And having more resources to actually help people, whether it's to help a spirit cross over or at least to give them peace of mind of what they're dealing with. If it's, nothing to be worried about, maybe try to get them, live in harmony with it. But yeah, I like going into an investigation with a minimal amount of equipment right now. Digital recorder is a must. I always take a digital recorder with me. Sometimes EMF meter. Like you said, if there's bad wiring in the house, throwing off high EMF, that could be causing some issues for clients. But I've always been attracted to the audio and EVPs and audio devices, because then you feel like more like you're establishing communication. Now, I've captured some excellent, visual anomalies, but again, it doesn't really help you understand what you're dealing with.
That's when you were with New Jersey Paranormal or whatever you were.
Right. And then
organization was called, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then you find out
it changed when you came with me.
If you take like a bunch of video cameras, set them up, say you set up 5 video cameras, you do a 3 or 4 hour investigation. Let's say you do 4 hours times 5 cameras, you've got 20 hours of video to sit there and watch.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, right?
Oh my God. I wanted to blow my brains out sometimes.
But don't you agree anyway that you get more evidence on a recorder than what you do on a camera?
Yes, but I will say I've gone back over some of my old evidence lately, and some of the visual evidence we caught is really, really interesting and compelling. I still like the EVPs. I'll even still use the SB7 Spirit Box to, try to establish like some real-time communication if possible. It doesn't always work, but you got to watch. If you're in a place that has a lot of strong radio stations, forget it. Just throw it out. If you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. See, Stephen, he likes the boys' toys.
Right. Well, it sounds like, Mark, that we had a similar trajectory, because I became involved in July of 2002. So next month will be my 18th anniversary in being involved in paranormal research. And I was involved with the team. I actually went on a little ghost tour in St. Augustine, Florida, took some pictures, came back to Memphis, sent them to the only website I could find at the time, and they debunked my pictures. And I was interested, though, at that point, and bought a recorder, went out to a little local cemetery, sat around evenings until I recorded a voice. Sent that to them, to the 2 ladies, and they said, hey, come and go with us. So we were... in that stage, they were only doing cemetery investigations, and then it seemed like when I joined in, Spirit said, okay, we're going to put them into houses now. So we started getting a lot of residential investigations. And that little group that was called the Ghost Stalkers of West Tennessee, and that lasted about 4 years. And then people dropped off one by one. You know how that happens.
Yep.
And it got down to me and 2 other people, and we went around and helped as much as we could. But at one point, it was just like an epiphany. It was just like, we're getting this evidence. We share that with the homeowner. We put it on our website, and then we do the same thing over and over. And it's really not helping anyone in a sense that their lives return to normal. So at that point, it's when I met a medium down there in St. Augustine, Florida, the one that helped allow us to cross over. And she introduced me to Spirit Rescue and taught me a few things. And then I've learned a lot just by trial and error, and have met other mediums along the way who've been involved in Spirit Rescue. So it's kind of been a journey for me. But from 2007 on until the present, it's not been about evidence collection for me. It's been about rescue.
Mm. Well, that's how it was with me, and of course, with me, I've been doing it since God was a boy. So, haven't I, Mark? I know it's well over 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well over, yeah.
Yep.
So, I don't now. I've retired from it now.
Uh-huh. I did meet an English medium along the way. Her name was Audrey Abernathy. And she had been involved in Spirit Rescue maybe for that length of time, too. So she was the one that introduced me to Spirit Rescue circles, that concept. And her group in England, I forget which part of the country she was in, but they would get together, and after World War II, they would get together and try to help, soldiers cross over and so forth. So I learned a lot from her. The main thing she told me that really struck home, that I've always made a central part of my counseling work, is to ask as many questions as possible. Because the more information that you get and the more that the spirit you're working with is able to divulge to you, it seems like it lightens their burden.
Yeah.
They're able to let go of things easier.
With us, we were exactly the same, but we also, after that side of it was all done and complete, we then went through the counselling with the family. Mm-hmm. Went through so many weeks of counselling with them, because especially if they were the type that were into these blasted films on the telly, because so if you didn't counsel them, if you didn't make sure everything was all right, everything was calm, and they'd be blooming back on the phone all excited. I've got another one.
Right. I've come across that before too, that situation.
Actually,
but we worked. Where did we work? Germany, France. We worked all over, didn't we, Mark?
Yeah, I think the furthest away you did was New Zealand.
Yeah.
Wow.
From the UK, New Zealand.
Yeah, everything working remotely.
Mm-hmm. We do some remote work. Jennifer Brooks, one of the mediums I work with, has worked with a family over in Oklahoma and one in East Tennessee. She's able to remote view the site and connect with whoever's there, and then do some counseling with them, and then do a clearing. So she's able to do that. I've actually had a visitation not too long ago, about 3 weeks ago, after someone contacted me from California, and I connected. I felt like there was a male and female spirit in that house when I was talking to the man that night. The female came to me as a young girl, about 14 years old, and that again was another claircognizant type experience for me. So I knew I could see her clearly, and knew her name and so forth. And she was able, after I counseled her a little bit and called on her loved ones, they came for her, and she was able to transition. So that was another example of some remote work that we did.
So how many cases do you think you've done?
I was thinking about that this morning, and I wish I had kept a record.
You're like me, they were up in the hundreds.
Many, many hundreds. I just wonder if it's gotten to 1,000. I really don't know. I do have a recording, though, of every single investigation I've ever done. I've got boxes up in my attic, and I'm writing a book right now, so I'm going to go back through some of those recordings and try to find my most interesting cases and spirit personality types, and just listen to those investigations again, so I can get jog my memory, so to speak. And then it's got to be many, many hundreds. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, with Spirit Rescue International, we were mainly working with negative, weren't we, Mark?
Negative, or we had some very unusual cases. Now, again, I came in towards the end. I wasn't with you that long, but you had it running for about 10 years before I even came along. So I missed.
That organization I did.
Yeah, I missed a lot of the negative. I don't think we ever worked a negative case that I was on. The one really big case we did was in Wales, but that turned out to be not a haunting at all. And the client got really upset with us when we told her the truth, because she was convinced that her house was infested with negative entities, and it was used by witches. Some psychic told her witches practice witchcraft there, and in the cellar, which, she didn't have a cellar. It was new apartment buildings, and but long story short, and we've told this story before, so our listeners have heard it, but turns out she was very strong psychically, and she was manifesting things. In fact, what she was manifesting was whatever she was afraid of. She had a psychic tell her that witches used to practice in her house. She started seeing an old hag in the house. Her boyfriend said that, he thought that there was a spirit of a young boy there. Then they both started seeing a spirit of a young boy there. But it wasn't happen until he said something. And the more we looked into it, Irene remote viewed it. We spent like a couple of months on this case, and we realized that she was doing these were thought form entities.
Yeah, it was like she was creating telepus.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
She was a very strange girl. Very strange girl.
Yeah.
And we've come across situations like that where people have manifested energies through their thoughts. Yeah, usually kind of darker type energies in my experience. So.
Mm-hmm. Which people do not do because they are buggers to get rid of.
All right.
You get your astral critters.
Oh, astral critters, yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about counseling not only the spirits but also the family. So
yeah, we do a lot. We did a lot of counselling in families. That's why we had doctors, nurses, counsellors, people that were trained in it. You know, hypnotherapists. We had all sorts of people working for us.
Our motto is investigate, educate, rescue. So
that's it.
We feel like we go in, we determine if there are, spirit energies in a location. We try to hear their story, find out where they've come from, if they're on the land previously, or they're attracted to the person who's living there, or they came with an object. And then we educate not only those spirits about their options for transitioning, but we also educate the homeowner or the business owner about why those things are happening and how they can, keep the vibration in their spaces high and avoid bringing other entities in. Yeah. And many of the clients, it seems like, I guess our guides send us to situations where people are awakening to their spiritual gifts, to the clairs, and many times it's a process of educating those people about how to work that if they want to, how to develop it, maybe recommend a class or a teacher in our area or books. And so that's part of the process. And of course, the main thing is the rescue and to try to help the spirits move on.
Yeah. Obviously, that's the most important part.
Right.
But also, another way of helping these families, so they don't reattract stuff in or anything like that, is feng shui.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, have you thought of that?
Well, I know
just a little bit of moving stuff around in the house gives the house a lot more peaceful, calmer. I'm not into feng shui, by the way, so nobody start writing to me asking me questions. But we did have somebody work with us once, and she was pretty good at it.
I'm familiar with that, and I do agree that if a house is really cluttered, there's just junk all over the place, it does tend to seem to attract energy
it
into
does,
it for some reason. I don't understand why, but it does, and it's a truism.
Yeah, you're right there. You are definitely right there.
So I've told many people, declutter.
Yeah. Feel a lot better. Right. And you'll be able to move around a lot easier. But do you ever leave, like, guardians in the house after you've done a rescue and cleared a house? Or if it's been a negative one, do you ever leave, like, guardians in the house, like, keep it peaceful, calm, everything out for a while?
Well, we work with some helpers on the other side. We call them in for different reasons, for protection, for healing, for communications, or just to bring the light in. But, there's been a couple of situations. I remember offhand, there was a family that was having some issues, and a young child was being bothered. So I just told them, ask the energy of Archangel Michael to dwell in this room. And that child actually saw him afterwards. They didn't tell him what they had done or anything, but he described a very tall, light very light being in his room at one time. So, I think they're available, if the intent is pure and good and for the highest good of everyone concerned. I think we're allowed to call those energies in for protection or, to keep the environment clean.
That particular one I call Mickey.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've had several encounters with that energy, and they've all just been amazing. Yeah.
Have you ever felt that, though, stand beside you?
Yes. The first time I worked with a medium named Rebecca, we were in a house in Midtown Memphis. It was a townhouse, 2-story. And so we went up the stairs and stood on the landing up there. And this first time I ever worked with this medium, I just met her. And she started, I thought she was praying. She started off with beloved, and then she went into this long thing. And it's the more that she was channeling him is what she was doing, the more she said, my entire body just became electrified. It was just incredible. And I felt like I was going to float off the face of the earth. So his energy is just overwhelming almost. But it was an experience I'll never forget. Oh,
it's fantastic when he does stand beside. With me, I don't have to do all that. When I call him, he's there, just like that.
Right.
And I always feel him on the right side, just behind my shoulder on the right side. Mm-hmm. And like you say, it is an incredible feeling. Absolutely incredible to know that you've got this light being and protection right there beside you. Especially when you're going after something that's pretty frigging dark.
Right.
You'll have to forgive me because I don't talk hairy-fairy. I go all out, don't I, Mark?
Very down to earth.
I'm very, very down to earth. I don't go anything hairy-fairy. So if it's a negative energy in front of me, I'll go after the bugger. I call it. I don't say, oh God, I've got a negative energy and I feel a creep around me. That's it. I'm going to get it. And it's this high energy and this anger, and the way it's not an anger, it's a raising of vibration that you can actually feel it in the whole of your body, as if and it's like zapping the buggers. It is like zapping them.
Absolutely.
It's the only way I can explain it because I don't talk airy-fairy. But, I raised I do. My vibrations just raise. They go sky high and that's it.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Another really memorable experience I had with that energy of Archangel Michael is I was teaching a workshop in an old school in this area. And I had about 8 workshop guests, and we were down in a hallway, and we had gone in there to try to rescue a little girl that people that worked at this facility had seen her many times. Oh. So I was working with that same medium I just talked about earlier, and we had connected with the little girl. We had called on one of her loved ones, and her dad came. And there was this man there who I guess had been a maintenance worker or a janitor or something. And I don't know about you, but I've run into situations where malevolent spirits will set up their own little kingdoms and kind of power other spirits under their control.
Yes, so I tell you I have. And and if you hear them, because I'm clairaudient, I see, I hear, I everything, right?
Right.
And when you're in a room or you actually hear this thing shouting at these the others, and it's like the high buzzing noise. Have you ever heard that? It's like being in a beehive full of bees.
Right.
But you can pick out the words, you can hear the shouting, but it's
right.
As well.
And that's what he did. He stepped in between the child and her father. I had my eyes closed, and I was instinctively called on the Archangel Michael. And so I didn't see this, but my workshop guests described this very bright light that shot down the hallway, and he immediately removed that guy. I guess he took him to a correctional facility. But, that was a visual representation of that energy, but he came in immediately and removed him
Yeah.
And the child was able to go on with her father in transition.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus?
Yes.
I'm going to call you Marcus all day because I am in one of those moods.
I can tell.
Yeah.
See, you two talk about your, light beings standing beside you and protecting you, and the others they avoid me like the plague. In fact, I think my guardian angel is in rehab.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Maybe. No, you've got a guardian angel, I'm sure.
Yeah. Smokes 12
got
packs
little
of
holes
cigarettes
on
a
it.
day, binge drinking.
Yeah, binge drinker. No, it's not a binge drinker. Little pointy tail. Carries a tripod.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right, Red?
Yep. Horny little devil, huh?
Mess around. Shouldn't mess around. So, Stephen, what is the worst case that you've done?
I've had a couple of cases, I guess, that bordered on possession, and they involved the clients who became obsessed with Ouija boards. One lady neglected to tell me that she had had an exorcism performed on her before I went over there to work with her. And she had developed some kind of relationship with the spirit she drew in through the Ouija board, even though she claimed this energy was assaulting her. She had some kind of connection that she just couldn't break. So I worked with her for a while, and one time I was in the house alone with her. Her husband had stepped out for a moment, and this deep, gravelly voice came out of her. And again, I called on my ally, Archangel Michael, and he dealt with that.
And Mickey.
Yeah.
Mickey. Yeah.
So that was one. Another one, let's see. That's probably one of the most extremes. I've had omens going to sites where one time there was this apparition that came down the road that we were traveling that was definitely unworldly, and actually vanished after it forced me off the road. Basically, I had to go around it, and we turned and looked, it vanished. So I think that was kind of a warning that the site we were going to, we needed to be extremely cautious, and that really turned out to be a situation where I think we were almost being lured into a house that we didn't want to be at. So we got that warning, thank goodness. But there's been a few things like that. Mostly, I think my guides at this point, especially with the two young ladies that I'm working with, they kind of steer us away from that extreme type work. We're mostly doing earthbound rescues at this point.
Yeah. Well, I used to do earthbound as well, but I always got this. I'm a bit of a little demon myself, you see.
Okay.
I always
like
got this.
Scrap, huh?
Yeah, I always got this excitement out of going up against something that was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
You got the adrenaline rush.
Sorry, Dad?
You got the adrenaline rush.
I used to get the adrenaline rush, but I totally enjoyed it. I totally enjoyed facing something that was really dark, really bad. And mind you, I did enjoy the earthbounds as well. But not as much as getting there and really getting in there and sorting out something that nobody else could sort out. You know?
Well, there's definitely a need for that. I think certain people tend to specialize in that or get those types of cases. But it's something I was involved in more in the early years. But over the past, 5 or 6 years, it seems like most of the cases that come to me are just people are having earthbound spirits. Although there are some cases where the people misinterpret the frustration of that earthbound spirit as something bordering on demonic. I think a lot of that.
Oh yeah.
These TV shows, they see all these things on TV, and everything is a demon on TV, right? Everything.
Yeah. Well, in America it is. Everybody's got a demon in America, but over here everyone's got a ghost. It's the opposite.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, people don't talk, they don't phone up and say, "Oh, I got a demon, I got a demon."
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that over here. But you're right, you can get these very, very dark ones that, like, so people that have been drug addicts or drunks or whatever, or murderers or whatever, that have really, really been bad in a lifetime. They don't change just because they go over it. This is what people say to me. Surely when they go over, if any, well, we're talking about people that I haven't gone over, but I've got to say this. People say to me, why is it I've got this feeling of someone kind around me? I know it's my dad, but he was a bugger, and I don't think that, in my experience, if your dad was a bugger when he went up, just stop saying that word. If your dad was not very nice when he was here living on Earth, when he's going to come back the old sod that he was, because otherwise you wouldn't believe it was your dad. You wouldn't recognise him as your father, sort of thing, But now I've gone right off tangent here, haven't I?
No.
No, there were cases that we worked on where people were pushed to suicide. Or close to suicide. And one in particular was a young girl. It was a young family, moved into this house and they had a baby and they kept hearing noises and everything and one thing or another. Turned out that the previous owners back in the 50s and 60s had a daughter that committed suicide. She hung herself. And in those days, they didn't talk. If they had mental problems or anything like that, people over here didn't really talk about it, or some people didn't even go to get help for their children because it was scorned upon, or they thought they'd be, talked about.
Right.
But it turned out that this girl that was haunting had been haunted by a previous suicide while she was alive that had pushed her into the same sort of thing, and she'd started haunting, and it was solved in the end. But like I said, I'm difficult to talk to because I don't talk hairy fairy. I'm straight down to earth, and even when I go out on a job, I'm not hairy fairy in any way,
Well, I have worked with suicide cases. In fact, that medium that I was working with when I had the experience with Archangel Michael on the landing, she had a friend who was Catholic, and she committed suicide. And I would often feel her around us. And she, as a clairaudient medium, she could hear what her friend was saying, and she tried to convince her over many, many years that, there was no punishment, and it was... She would be forgiven, but I think her religious upbringing had instilled that fear in her to the point where she just preferred to stay in kind of that limbo state. And it was really sad. But
this is it.
As far as I know, she never has transitioned at this point.
Yeah, you can't force them. They've got free will.
Yes, absolutely.
You can only guide them and help them and try to get them to do it. But at the end of the day, it's down to the actual spirit whether they cross or not.
True.
Because everybody's got free will. This is what makes us who we are.
Right. And I've worked with children spirits. It used to bother me early on when I could distinguish the age of spirits. I knew I was working with a child spirit or medium was with me who could see them clearly. But in my experience, I don't know about you, but in my experience, there seems to always be a relative of that child who's nearby, or some type of guardian who's crossed over, who's watching over the child. And like you say, the child is a little person. They have free will. So if they're happy where they are, there's two child spirits I can think of right off the bat that I have encountered and worked with and counseled, and they chose not to go. And that's okay. One's in a theater and one was in a house that he just really loved the house. So you can only do so much, but at least they know they have that option. That's, I feel like, is our responsibility to inform them about the options that they have.
Yeah. It's like this house I'm in here. I've got 3 in this house. And,
Wow.
I don't push them to go. If they want to go, they're going to let me know. But they loved the house. They built the house. They bought the land. They built the house, a couple of 100 years ago or whatever. And the house is actually built out of love itself. So it's not the house keeping them here, it's them keeping the house. They don't want to leave the house.
Yeah.
But occasionally, yeah. So, and I think they've got every right to stay here. It's their house, But like I said, if they want to go, they're going to let me know, and I'll know straight away. But I also have something that comes in occasionally. The house is meant to be built on, somebody told me it was built on ley lines. And a lot of the stuff, apparently, energy, it's all to do with energy, isn't it? If ley lines are energy, their energy, they're going to use it.
Sure.
Local highway. And occasionally I've had something really, really evil get in this house, and I just go and zap it,
We're definitely more powerful than anything out there.
Oh yeah.
People don't realize that, and that's one thing we try to educate our clients about.
Yeah.
You have the body, they don't, and as long as your vibration is high, they can't come close to you and they can't harm you.
No.
So they may throw something here or there, or turn the light on or off, or
Well, that's
noises,
the whole point of the real negative ones. What they're trying to do is, for the people who don't know any better, is to create those situations of fear and negativity, because that's what they feed off of.
Absolutely.
I
like
high energy.
I liken them to paranormal parasite. They're, in fact, in some cases, some of these things wouldn't necessarily call them evil, but what they do is they purposely create situations to create as much stress and fear as possible, and then they feed on that. And of course, when the person's afraid and gives into it, gives it what it wants, it starts getting stronger and stronger, and then it could build up into a possible possession.
Yeah, survival.
Yeah.
That's happened recently in a case I worked, and to me, I view them almost like roaches, because when, in the dark, the roaches are roaming around, and then when you flip the light on, in a sense, like we're the light workers,
they
right?
scatter.
They scatter. And you can easily crush them underfoot, too. So, I tell people that they just can't wrap their heads around that concept, though.
Well, because, our society, Western society especially, is... We're pre-programmed from childhood with very Victorian era ideals, because ideals stemming from the Victorian era spiritualism. And so you'll hear so many ghost hunters and investigators and all these TV shows, regurgitating material that's, been around for about 120, 130 years, but there's really no basis in fact for it. And they haven't really learned themselves about what they're dealing with in terms of certain types of energy. Every time I hear an investigator or somebody say, oh yeah, somebody died and they have unfinished business, so they're still sticking around, and half the time I'm sitting there going, how the hell do you know that? Because you don't. You don't know what their motivation, unless you're really psychic and you can pick up on it. You don't know what the motivation is. And in so many of these cases, in dealing with the paranormal,
websites, Mark, it's all written in those websites.
Well, what gets me is, in what I've learned especially over the last several years, is not everything is related to a ghost or a spirit of somebody who's died. There are other factors at play dealing with everything from time lapses, or or time jumps. There's even anything that's interdimensional. People who think this is my favorite rant, people who they see an apparition of somebody in period clothing going down the stairs. They right away, oh my God, I saw a ghost and she was in a maid costume. And so she must be still going around and doing her work because she doesn't know she's died. And I'm sitting there going, okay, well, that's one possibility. Maybe another possibility is because we know, and even science is starting to figure this out with string theory, and you have the physicists like Dr. Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson, and they start talking about time, and pretty much time in itself is an illusion. We measure time in linear time. We go from 1 second to the next to the next to the next, when in reality, especially in dealing with the spirit world, there is no time. All time is happening at once.
Yeah, but with me, when I've gone through, when this time things happen to me, when I've kind of slipped or whatever, I know what I'm seeing is not a spirit, that it is from different time. But look at the woman in that house.
Right. But you could pick up on that. She was
shocked to see me as I was to see her.
Right. Mm-hmm. So in that case, instead of you seeing a ghost, I knew. We have two very much alive, living, breathing human beings who happen to see each other, but they're in different time periods. And for whatever reason, the conditions just happen to be right in that location where those two time periods overlap.
And I often think to myself, after seeing that woman, right, and she was as shocked as I was to see her, I bet in my mind, I think I can see her going downstairs saying, I've got to have a cup of tea, I've just seen a ghost. Being me, I'm the ghost.
Yep.
Right.
And I can just see her going back downstairs in the house, because she was like in a big house, asking for a cup of tea, a sweet cup of tea or something, plenty of sugar. I've just seen a ghost.
And boy, was she wearing strange clothes.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, they were period clothes. But the point is, also, when you're doing it that often, because I'm a remote viewer as well, so this is all down to time and God knows what else. But when you kind of flip over, what's the word, Mark? Step into a different time for those few split seconds, which many people do. Because I'm who I am and what I do and what I've done for 60 odd years or maybe longer. I'm giving my age away now. I'm only 21. But, I know the difference. I know when it's time. I know when it's a ghost. And, an earthbound spirit. I can tell the difference.
But I think most people would not.
Yeah. One walks past me in a supermarket or down the street. I know what it is exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think most people, though, without the experience that you have and the abilities that you have, would not be able to distinguish that.
Well, the vibrations are all different,
Yes, absolutely. I've seen two full-bodied apparitions, and Mark, your description almost fit what I saw. The person that I saw, it was in an antebellum home near Memphis, and we were doing a workshop. And this young lady, I noticed a movement out on the hallway about 30 minutes into our workshop. And this young lady who was dressed in a big antebellum hoop skirt, her hair was up in a bun. I'll never forget the sight. She was kind of sparkly. The colors in her dress were gold and burgundy, and you could slightly see through her. But she never turned and looked at us, and she just kind of floated past the hallway, by the doorway, rather. So I jumped up and ran out in the hallway, and she was, she'd vanished. But three of us saw her, but I feel like that was a time slip. I really don't think she was actually there. Mm-hmm. Maybe she had gone to the front door many times when they had a party or something in that dress. And we just got a glimpse of time that, like you say, it was something that occurred in the house, and we just happened to be at the right point to experience that.
Well, see, that also goes back to one of the theories that these ghost shows keep promoting, like Ghost Hunters, is the stone tape theory, where supposedly energy of a past event imprints itself on a location, whether it's due to limestone in the ground or ley lines, or you have water underground, and so an event plays over and over again
trauma
on a loop. Yeah, trauma like in a battle.
Battlefields. Yeah.
But I don't buy that because it's missing. I think the one aspect is that people are missing is the element of time or lack of time. It's not that something is pre-recorded and location and playing over and over. It's that whatever's in that location is, whether it's because of the energy. I'm going to use Gettysburg as a great example because it's only 3.5 hours from me. I've been there a million times, investigated it. People have seen so much activity at Gettysburg. And yet I think because of the energy that's there, and possibly because of if there are ley lines running through it, they're seeing these repeats or visions of soldiers from the battle, or even having direct interaction with so-called apparitions. There's a famous story told up in Gettysburg, up on Little Round Top. 2 Civil War reenactors were up on Little Round Top, and they were in full uniform, and they were suddenly approached by another older gentleman in a Union uniform. And he comes up to them and goes, "Here, boys, you're going to need these," and hands them live rounds of ammunition.
Oh, wow.
And then they're in shock, and they turn and look around, and he's gone. Now, but he gave them live rounds for their muskets. Now, what would people say? Again, people tell that as a ghost story. I don't see that as a ghost story. I think that whatever the condition was, time overlapped, and these real live people met, and he gave them real live ammunition, and that's the only way that would come through. A ghost couldn't give that to you.
I agree. I feel like everything is overlapping, all the dimensions and time and space. It's folded on top of on top of itself. So I think that's entirely plausible.
There's a story over here that is actually in York City, which is a very old Roman city, or it was. It's not everyone. It's a beautiful old city, still cobblestone streets and God knows what else. But there was a man working down in the basement of this building, and all of a sudden he heard like drumming, and the next thing, horses, gladiators or whatever they were, Roman soldiers and everything, came straight out of the wall and straight through, across the cellar or something that he was in, and straight out through another wall. But he couldn't see their legs. He could only see from the knees down, because they must have been on the old Roman road that ran through there at one time.
And the road was lower than what the foundation of the building was today. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the famous sightings. He ran and he never went back. He didn't finish the work, as far as I know. But it was a whole garrison.
Yeah,
garrison of Roman soldiers on marching through. Horses, everything.
Now, something else I wanted to ask you, Stephen, since we've kind of we're talking about alternative types of phenomenon. Have you ever dealt with, I'm going to say it, non-human entities, but I'm not talking about demonic?
Are you talking like ET type energies or what?
Possibly.
No, I've never had an encounter with any ET type energies.
Earth energies.
There are earth spirit types of energies too, and we call them earth spirits, but they're not exactly spirits, because there are and this
elementals.
Kind of. I mean, I really am not sure what the correct terminology is. It depends on the culture, because you can look at, over in England and the Celtic, they have the fairy lore. In Iceland, they have Icelandic elves. In the Middle East, they have jinn. And here in Americas, like in North Carolina, they have the Cherokee Little People. And, they're they're looked at as flesh and blood beings, intelligent beings, but yet they have this spiritual or metaphysical quality to them where they kind of come in and out of our reality. And, I've mentioned this before. Our listeners know this case well, where I've worked a case here in New Jersey for a number of years that we realized over time we were dealing with elemental type energies on the land that was affecting several houses in the neighborhood. And it wasn't a human spirit. Now, it wasn't a demonic spirit or anything super negative, although sometimes it could be a little negative, but it wasn't evil per se. But it did cause some mischief. And people would see these shadows. They'd see some apparitions of people. But the one client I was working with, she was really starting to get affected by it. She almost had a nervous breakdown until she had to move and get out of that house. And once she moved out, she was perfectly fine. I mean, I was in the kitchen with her one day. I was talking to her, and she's like, her hands are shaking. She's using a knife to cut up vegetables, and she's so frantic and upset, and she's waving the knife around. I'm sitting there going, Jesus, she's going to stab somebody here. And then a few minutes later, we go outside, and she comes outside with us, and she's perfectly calm. It's like whatever was affecting her was in the house. But yet, we also had things happening around her property and going out into the woods behind her property. And then the house across the street, they had one of the few times I've been on television. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, can you guys hear me? Irene?
Hello?
Stephen?
Yes. I got dropped out. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I've lost Mark.
Can you hear me?
Lost Mark.
I'm here.
All right.
Okay, yeah, I'm here. I don't know what happened. Somehow my mute
That was
button
strange.
my mute button got pressed, and I didn't do it. But I was telling about
And I lost Stephen as well.
Yeah. It was like it sound like I went whoop, and then you were gone.
You were gone, and I lost both of you.
Huh.
Interesting.
Did you lose both of us, Stephen?
Yes, I could not hear anybody.
That's weird, Mark.
That's weird, and I was on mute. Somehow my mute button got hit. Okay, so somebody's messing with us, and of course it happens to be.
Could be the elementals.
Could be the elementals.
Yeah,
I do have a couple of stories about elementals now that you brought that up, and I'm thinking about it. So.
Yeah, I got a little bugger sitting under my blooming stairs. Go on. Carry on. Where were we?
I lived in a house for a few years that was on a mountainside, that the mountainside people had talked about had a lot of activity that I feel had elemental spirits in it.
Are we doing the show now?
Yeah, we're back on.
So I went into a house not too long ago. It was a friend of mine as a business. She bought an old house to put a business in. And she asked us to go through and do a clearing and see if there are any spirits in the house and help them cross and then do a clearing. So we got to this one room, and there was this very strange energy there. I can distinguish male, female, earthbound, crossed over, angelics, and so forth. I don't think I've ever felt an energy quite like this. And it didn't feel negative. It just felt different. And so I have another friend in this area who's a very gifted medium named Sheila, and she was with me. And she started describing what looked like this gargoyle-type creature. And apparently it was something connected to the land. He was benign, but he was there in that space. And so when I did the clearing work that I always do at the end of our crossing rescue work, he was still there. So he apparently he's supposed to be there on that land and everything. And that was different for sure.
I was saying I lived on a piece of property up here in our area. And for whatever reason, this part of North Jersey has several pockets of areas that have a high amount of paranormal activity. That I don't believe it's single hauntings or ghosts, but I believe it's due to whatever's on the land up here. You know, we had a real heavy Native American influence up here. And not saying just because Native Americans lived here that means automatically, oh, they're spirits or elementals, because, too many people jump to that conclusion too. But that case I was talking about earlier, one of the houses that was across the street from the other lady I was talking about, we did a television show that brought in ground penetrating radar, and they scanned the backyard, and there's a buried structure in the backyard that's perfectly circular and seems to have what looks like an arrowhead or like an arrow going through it. You have the pointed tip at one end, and then like a feather's coming out the other end. And this showed up in the radar image. And then around the structure, there was these 5 bright spots that the radar technician called areas of interest. Basically, he thought they were burials.
Wow.
So, but, it's not just the burials that may have been on the property, because the houses were built in the 1920s. Used to be farmland before that, and then before that was Indian land. So it might have been some kind of a sacred place or sacred location. But the stone circle or whatever is under the ground, and unfortunately the client was too afraid, she wouldn't let us dig it up. She wouldn't let us excavate to find out what was there. So,
probably smart idea.
Yeah.
Don't disturb the Native American sacred sites.
Well, and then she sold the house and moved too, so it's still there. But
I have come across some Native American sacred sites here in our area. We had a tribe here in this area called the Chickasaw, and also I think the Cherokee Indians were in this area too. But there was one site we went to where there had been a skirmish between settlers and Native Americans there, and we encountered 4 sentinels on that land. I can only describe them as sentinels. They were very tall, and they appeared dark. I think anybody that was in that area could feel it if they were at all sensitive to energy. It was kind of a foreboding feeling, so I think they'd been placed on that land to guard it or to, keep it sacred and to keep it from being disturbed. And once we worked with the settlers that were there, I've never encountered an earthbound Native American spirit, by the way. Once we worked with the settlers and did a mass crossing there, then those sentinels changed, their energy changed, and they became more light and more kind of like light beings in a sense. So I have come across that several times.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
We actually had a Native American medicine woman come to us, and the medium that I was working with could hear her. She gave us a prayer to say, and once we said that prayer, that's when that change occurred with those sentinels. Yeah. So whether or not they went ahead and ascended and left that site at that point, I don't know, but there was a change in their vibration.
Very interesting.
I thought I'd lost you.
Nope, still here. You're not so lucky.
What? Are you sure that you're there? Are you there, Mark?
Yes, I'm here. No ghosties have turned on my mute button yet.
Well, I can't understand how we all lost each other, because if it was just you muted, your mute button went on, I still would have been able to talk to Stephen.
Right. So it was very strange.
Yeah.
I've had that happen during several interviews, and it seems like when we get on a particular subject, it's almost like they're trying to get us back onto spirit rescue or something. I don't know, but I've had it cut out like that before. It's very strange.
Yeah, it could be that, or otherwise they're trying to protect you from me. Or Mark. So you get a lot of satisfaction from actually doing spirit rescue then?
I do. I feel like it's...
doesn't it feel good after you've done it?
It
after
does.
You've done a case, doesn't it feel good?
And I will tell you this, that same Native American medicine woman who came to us and gave us that prayer told us that every time a spirit crosses, it has a ripple effect in the entire universe.
Yeah.
So it must be very important work. I can't imagine that one crossing would have such a tremendous effect in the whole universe. But I guess there's that balance, in the universe that needs to be restored. And it's a constant, constant process to try to bring the vibration higher throughout the entire universe. So it apparently helps a whole lot. So that after I heard that, I was like, okay, I know I'm doing something important here, and I need to stick with it.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's a pity I didn't know you when we had the International Spirit Rescue International.
I wish I'd found you then. Yeah.
Yeah, the work we done was absolutely amazing. It was really amazing. I used to do the dirty stuff though. Yeah, but it is a very, very uplifting feeling. You feel like you've done something worthwhile.
I agree. Absolutely. I'm able, being clairsentient, when I feel their vibration as they're earthbound, it's kind of lower around my crown chakra, maybe around my ear, lower ear area. And as they actually transition and their vibration increases, I feel that tingling sensation rise all the way to the top of my crown chakra, which, is our connection to source. So I can feel them leave. And I know exactly the moment that they transition and go ahead and go into the light. So it's quite emotional sometimes, especially if it's a child spirit who releases and rejoins their loved ones.
But there was a couple of cases. I've done loads of cases on this where, you've had the client say, I've got a child spirit, I've got this spirit. One particular client I had, I've got a child spirit, little girl, but I don't want her to go.
Right.
We got that. But many cases where people phone up and say, I've got a child spirit in the house, I've seen this child in the house, one thing or another. And when you actually get down to nitty gritty and you challenge the child, or if it's a child, I don't challenge it. But if I feel that that particular image is not a child and I challenge it, then it does change. It kind of morphs into what it really is. And then you have to work from that, But
I've encountered, I call those posers. And I feel like they can't, like you say, once you challenge them, to me, it's just a vibrational thing. If I focus on them, if my partners focus on them, they can't hold that illusion very long. And it slips away, and you see exactly what you're dealing with.
Well, this
or
is
you can
it,
feel that vibration. Yeah. So, I call those posers. I think people say they're tricksters or whatever, but they're out there.
Tricksters, I call them. But the fact that the families actually believe it's an actual child, well, they can't feel the vibration, they cannot feel the sensations that I feel when I'm face to face with that. It's a totally different thing facing a child spirit to facing one of these. Even if it looks like a child in a child's form at that particular time, straight away, instantly, it's not. It's a built-in instinct. It's not a child.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've encountered that many times. Mm-hmm.
And of course you get the mimickers. How many times you go in a house have your name called out?
Oh, yes.
And it's either your voice or somebody's voice that you know. They're actually able to pick up the voice of somebody else on the team or whatever and mimic that voice like a parrot.
Right.
Perfect.
Well, what about the one that mimicked your voice that time that you caught on audio?
Yeah.
I had one mimic, and of course this was a negative energy. It was trying to fool us and mess with us, but we got this strange EVP. This was in the early days before I got involved in rescue, and we were in an old house in a little town near Memphis, and we would really do a lot of review of EVPs and recordings that we had, and we decided we were going to play this one backwards. And it sounded like my voice when it was played backwards, but there was a message there. Yeah.
Well, I was on a case once, and I was talking to the client. The clip that you've heard, Mark, is the cut-down clip, but if you were to hear the continuous clip, you'd hear me talking to this client, and all of a sudden, this thing, it sounds like my voice, but very gruff and rough. It turns around and says, "You're dead, Bear. You're dead, Barry." Something like, "You're dead, Barry." Right. Well, Barry was on our team, and he had a heart condition. 2 weeks later, he died. So, it's but it did kind of mimic me. But you can still hear on the original clip, you can still hear me chatting away in the background to this person.
I've had many cases where spirits will mimic voices. There was one, I remember, it was in a warehouse where they would ship out movies to different locations. And there was actually a child spirit in that location, and she was having a lot of fun. What she would do is when the workers were back in the back, she would call to them in the voice of the manager. So they would come up, and then they would go back, and she would get them going back and forth all day long. And so we were able to go in and try to work with her and help her to leave.
Yeah.
She was having fun, though.
What about Laird Hauntings?
What's that?
Laird Hauntings. Hauntings from different times on different levels. Have you ever done any of those? Like you've got, say, somebody from the medieval times and somebody from the Victorian times. They're working it's like they're all haunting, but they're unable to connect with each other, sort of thing. It's a layered haunting. So you clear one, then you clear the next, and this.
I
and then
can't
the next.
say that I've ever encountered that, actually. But here in this area, our history doesn't date back as far as some of the places in your country.
Yeah.
And I think maybe one of the oldest cities I've investigated in the U.S. is St. Augustine, and I have had many encounters down there, but they seem to be more individualized. Like a certain spirit will come and approach us asking for help, and I don't really recall anything like that. That's interesting.
Layered hauntings, I call them.
Okay.
So, they're all from different times, but they're all haunting the same building, but they're not aware of each other. They're doing their own thing in their own time scale, sort of thing.
All vibrating at different energies. They're vibrating at different energy levels.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like tuning into a different radio stations. They're all playing at once, but you can only tune into one station at a time.
Right. And if you've got a receiver, if you've got a medium there that's able to tune to all those frequencies, then you get all that information from the different spirits. Yeah. Quite interesting.
They are interesting cases. They are interesting to work. Now,
have you ever worked a case that has just left you stumped, that you weren't able to resolve, or you're just not really sure what you were dealing with?
Probably in the early days, there were many of those because I wasn't developed enough to really sense the energy at that point. And maybe we had a medium on the first team that I worked with back in 2002, but she was a developing medium, and she would hit sometimes and miss sometimes. So it was probably 5 or 6 years into my career as an investigator before I really started working with natural mediums or gifted mediums that could really bring through a lot of information. And then, over the years, I've developed more and more. I think I'm a massage therapist and also an energy worker. So typically when I finish a massage for someone, I will be down at their feet. I'll finish with their feet, and then I'll do maybe 5 or 10 minutes of energy work or channel work. And I always ask for their loved ones to come through. And I can always feel who that is. Sometimes I get messages at that point. And the client is also able to feel the energy flow through them, which is really cool, and also kind of helps them open up sometimes to their own gifts. So
that's true.
Yeah. So I would say anyone who's listening to this that really wants to try to open up to their gifts, if they're starting to get messages or that type of thing, that, being attuned in some kind of energy modality like Reiki or healing touch or something like that could be the catalyst that really opens them up. It did for me. And that happened in about 2007.
What about color clearings? Have you ever done color clearings?
What kind of clearings?
Color clearings.
Color?
Let me explain. Color colour clearings. I had a client about 300 miles away from me in the Lake District, lived in an old cottage. And she was having all sorts of problems, the door banging and one thing or another. Every day the door would open and it would shut and bang and all this sort of thing. And she was seeing a young man in the house who apparently committed suicide. And I lay in bed one night and I talked to them up there. So I sound crazy, don't I? I sound absolutely crazy the way I say it. I turn around and say, okay, come on then, tell me how am I going to do this one? I do this one remotely? How am I going to do it? And this particular night, I've got at the end of my drive, I've got 2 very old wrought iron gates. Right, very high wrought iron gates that were built by the owner of this house. He made them. And these wrought iron gates, I'm sitting up in bed saying, right, come on, tell me what I've got to do, with this particular case. These wrought iron gates were suddenly at the bottom of my bed. And behind the wrought iron gates was a man dressed in modern day clothes. Okay?
Okay.
He opened the gates at the bottom. They were actually in the room. I was looking at them. They were in the room, right?
Okay.
At the bottom of my bed. He opened the gates and walked through the gates and then closed them and just stood there in front of me. So I said, okay, this is fine. Now what's going to happen? What have I got to do? And they said, you will use the colour green. And I was shown the colour green, but pea green, like pea green. You will use the colour green. And this person is your helper. This was the very first time, I think, that I realised that it wasn't Archangel Michael, but it was Archangel Michael. But why he was in these... I said, well, why is he dressed like this? Because you call him Mickey. So, you call him Mickey. And if he was to appear at those gates in his normal form, you might have been startled. So we showed you him in this particular form. Anyway, I had to do this clearing in the colour green. It sounds crazy the way I'm talking about it. So when it came to doing the clearing, I tuned in one thing and another remotely, and I saw this actual boy in the sitting room of this house. Okay?
Okay.
So I visualised the whole room turning this pea-coloured green. Literally pea-coloured green. And then there was this opening in this colour, like a slot, and he just went towards it and walked through it. He looked towards this kind of opening in the, it was like can you imagine curtains that are slightly open?
Right.
Okay? There was an opening to his side in the colour green. The whole room was I was visualising everything was green, okay?
Okay.
And then there was this opening. He turned his head towards the opening, walked towards it and walked through it. And that was the end of that one.
Beautiful.
And she phoned me up the following day and she said, what did you do? She said, the whole place has changed. So,
That makes perfect sense to me. You just projected the vibration of that color. And apparently that was the color that was needed for him.
Yeah.
To get into that vibration that would carry him on through.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. You've taught me something today, so I'm so glad.
It's something you can, it can be done, but you've got to know when. The point is, you've got to know. It's like you couldn't do it on every clearing. You've got to know which clearing, which colour, and which, which case sort of thing.
Right.
It won't work on every case.
I understand.
Yeah.
But it could come in handy sometime, right?
Yeah. Well, that's like the blue healing, isn't it? So they say. But what's green mean? I never did find out what green was because after I'd done it, I didn't bother after that.
I think green typically represents healing.
Does it?
Right. My understanding. So that makes perfect sense. To me, everything is energy. Everything is vibrating a certain frequency. So to bathe that, to project that energy into that space at that certain frequency is probably exactly what was needed in that situation. Well, it definitely was, because it worked, right?
Yeah, and when you're visualizing stuff, you're using energy to visualize. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's all to do with energy. Everything's to do with energy.
Right.
But, yeah, I call them color clearings. But
I like that.
That was
I've
the
never
very
heard of
first
that before.
one. But what really got to me about that one, it wasn't actual clearing. It was the fact that my bloody front gates were at the bottom of my bed in my room. You know?
That's pretty
And
wild.
you're sitting there, and all of a sudden you see, and you could fit. They're so solid looking that you could reach out and touch them.
So it really got your attention, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an amazing story. I love it.
But, you know, to actually see those gates in that room, and I'm sure if I'd gone to the bottom of the bed, I could have touched them because they were solid as my bed.
Were they pearly?
Well,
No, you silly bugger. They were. They were wrought iron gates, black wrought iron gates.
well, I have seen.
I sent you a photograph of them. Huh?
I've seen objects move. You know, coins, of course, and feathers. And once I was in a house, and a little girl picked up a baby shoe as I was walking down a hallway and threw it across the hallway in front of me. She didn't throw it at me, thank goodness. But so I know they can dematerialize things and move things around, and
Oh, they can. Yeah, if they want to get your attention. Or they want to mess around with you. You know, we've had books piled up on, like a pyramid, up on the windowsill in the back bedroom. I came down one morning. My daughter-in-law went shopping the day before, and when she came back with the change, she said, "What should I do with this?" I said, "Throw it on the fridge, on the top of the fridge." So she threw it. So it was all over the top of the fridge. And we went to bed that night. It was still all over, scattered all over the fridge. When we came back in the morning, it was piled up. You had the biggest coins at the bottom. You had the next size, and so on, right the way, so that they were all piled up on top of each other. They were all placed dead center on the coin underneath, right? And all the heads were turned up, the queen's heads.
So somebody really liked things in order.
Yeah, yeah.
That's nice.
But,
I had a client one time in Arkansas that had a spirit living in her house or staying in her house that would make her bed up every day. Or so she claimed.
I wish mine would.
I know. Wouldn't it be nice?
All mine do here is nick your glasses, your spectacles, or your cigarette lighters. So how many of them over the years has gone missing is unbelievable. You know, somewhere there's a stash of about 20 or 30 pairs of glasses.
Oh, no.
But, you know, they're fun. I love them.
Sure.
Yeah.
They're just people. They don't have their bodies anymore, but they're still people.
Well, when we first came to view this house, it was empty. And it'd been empty for about 5 years, I think. And my husband was talking in the kitchen to the person that was selling it to us. And I said, "Do you mind if I go and have a wander around?" So I went back upstairs. I went upstairs, opened up the master bedroom door. Didn't step over the threshold because the first thing I saw was an Edwardian lady standing at the window. Yeah. As I came back down the stairs, I felt this cold rush of air go up. And we got back in the car, and then I felt something else. I can't remember what it was. We got back in the car, and we were driving back to London. And he said, "Well, how many are in there?" I said, 3. So, you know, he said, "Do you want to buy it?" I said, "Yeah." Okay, we buy it.
Is there any law in England that you have to disclose if there's spirits in your house if you sell your house? No. Okay. I don't think there is here in the States either.
I think there's some regional laws, maybe not by states, but by towns. To have a certain law. There are a few towns that say if you have to disclose if your house is haunted.
Oh, really? I've never come across that here in our area.
What about?
It's probably a good thing, though.
Yeah. Have you ever been into a house or got to a house and you've got to that front door and you think to yourself, "No way"? Am I stepping in there? Have you ever done that?
Oh yeah, I think I mentioned earlier about the kind of omen that we had when we were going to a house one time. Actually, it was an apparition of a woman in a wheelchair, kind of a old haggy-looking woman, and she was rolling right down the center of the little country lane we were on, straight at us, and I had to go around her. And it was very shocking. And I looked at the medium that was with me, and I said, "Did you see that?" And we both turned around and looked, and she had vanished. So when we got to the house that we were supposed to investigate, it just did not feel right. And I told her to stay in the car. And I went to the front door, knocked on the door. We were there at the correct address at the correct time. And the door opened, and there was this very strange-looking man in a diaper who came to the front door. And he did not speak to me. He just looked at me, and then he turned around and shut the door. And at that point, it was like, okay, we're leaving. This does not feel right. And I contacted the family. It was a young family that had called us, and they never responded to any emails or any calls that I made. So I don't know what that was all about. It was very strange.
That is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very weird.
But I had to trust my instincts. You know, I told my partner to stay in the car, and then we just left.
Yeah. I had a phone call once from somebody saying that their wardrobes were moving around upstairs. They had not built-in wardrobes. You know, they had the actual wardrobes that you buy.
Yeah.
And they were moving around upstairs in the room. And while she was talking, I could hear this heavy movement going on upstairs in her house. Although I was on the phone, you could hear it. And I said, okay, I'll be around tomorrow. I went to bed that night. And I'm laying in bed, and I saw myself standing at the front door. I'd never been to this house before. I saw myself standing at the front door. I saw the door open. I stepped into the hallway, and knives were just flying at me. Knives. The following day, I went round there, and of course, it's the same front door, isn't it? I thought to myself, do I knock? No.
Right.
You know, I didn't want to knock. Yeah, so.
Got to pay attention to those warnings, right?
Yeah, definitely got to pay attention to them. But a man in a diaper?
Yeah, and he did not look normal. But
no.
That was quite strange. Now, I've been in other situations where, especially when I used to work solo, when I didn't have a partner at the time, where I was more concerned about the people, the client, once I got into the home, rather than any spirits I might encounter. Their energy was seen to be off, you know, in several cases. And I was always glad to, when that time was up and I could get out of there, you know, at a decent, stay an hour or something like that. But I was very cautious the entire time I was there. It's really not a good idea to go by yourself, but it's a calling for me. So if I didn't have a partner at the time, I wasn't going to turn anybody down that asked for help.
Yeah, no, I definitely say don't go by yourself.
Right.
You know, in my case, it doesn't matter whether I go by myself or not. I can't drive, so I have to have someone with me. But when I was a child and I used to talk about things or see stuff, I always remember what my mum says, and everybody says it now, but my mum was the first one in my life to say it. You know, it's not the dead that'll hurt you, it's the living.
I agree with that totally.
And if you get a feeling there's something off with the people of the house, you know, get out.
Well, I think our guides are always watching out for us, so I've learned over the years to watch for the signs they give me and to pay attention when I get those feelings and get that little thought in my head is, they're really here to protect me and they're going to guide me and keep me safe. So I pay attention to those things.
Have you met your guides?
I do. I've got 2 Native Americans, and actually this morning one is I call him Seeing Crows because he will show me crows all the time. And as I was going on my morning walk this morning, 3 crows appeared at an unusual place. Also saw 2 rabbits today, so I've got to look up some symbolism of rabbits. I think that's probably appropriate to something that's going on, or maybe even to this interview. But I get signs all the time from my guides, and I have a really interesting story about signs, if you'd like me to tell that.
Yeah, let me just tell you who my guides are first.
Okay, sure.
I've got a monk and an old lady.
Now, have you seen
very
the
old
monk?
lady who's not related to me in what? No way.
Have you seen the monk in a while? You haven't really talked about it in a very long time.
I know when it's about, but the first clear sighting I saw of him was in that lane on my way to my grandmother's when I was about 7 or 8 years old, in that country lane. That was the very first time when he's. Oh yeah.
Since childhood. Okay.
Yeah, and I've had other mediums turn around and say, "Oh, you got a monk behind you." So we don't have red Indians here much. We're monks.
When I was working with the medium that I talked about earlier, she and I shared a guide. He was Oriental, and he appeared. She could see him. I could feel his energy, of course, and he was very mirthful. So we gave him the name Smiling Sun, and he was just laughing all the time and very jolly. And he stayed with us while we worked together, and then he left. So I think a lot of times they're assigned to you when you're doing certain work or in certain periods of your life, and then they'll move on as you progress on your journey.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's true. If you want to learn a piano, so they'll assign somebody that can help you with the piano sort of thing.
Yeah, sure.
So what were you going to say? You were going to tell us a story.
I was going to tell you about my sign story. So I would say maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I was kind of at a crossroads in my life, and I felt like I was kind of directionless and needed some help and some guidance, even more powerful than I was receiving from my guides. And so I was down on the beach in the Gulf Coast down here in the U.S., and I was down there for a weekend. And I was walking the beach about midnight, and I just kind of got down on my knees, and I said, God, I feel like I don't really understand my purpose here, and I just want to surrender and just ask you to use me, however I can best serve. Yeah. And I said, if you hear me, would you please give me a sign? I said, I really want a sign. So I went to bed that night and got up the next morning, and as I was leaving that area, I saw this man on the side of the road, and he was holding up a big sign. It said Jesus, and it had a red heart and the letter U. So it's basically Jesus loves you. And apparently this gentleman is a fixture in that little town, and he's out there every day waving his sign as cars go by and honk at him and so forth. So I decided, well, I think that's really cool. I'm going to take a picture of that sign. Maybe that's the sign that I asked for. So I got out and talked to him a little bit. He went and got a book for me that he had written about the history of the little town. Apparently his grandfather was the founder of the town. Yeah? And, and so he asked me to hold his sign while he went and got the book. So I was holding the sign. People were honking at me. It was fun. And he came back, and I gave him the sign. And then I told him I had to leave because I had a really long drive ahead of me. And he said, well, wait just 1 minute. I have something else for you. So what did he go and get for me? What did I ask for on the beach? I asked for a sign. So he comes back and gives me a sign that says Jesus heart you. So I asked for a sign from Source and from God, and I literally got what I asked for, a physical sign. So I thought that was, Spirit has a nice sense of humor. I've discovered over the years. So I thought that was quite interesting that I got what I asked for, and quickly too.
It's nice the way they treat you. They treat me like get on and do it, girl.
So I always tell people, be careful what you ask for, because a lot of times you'll get exactly what you ask for. If it's something good and something nice, that's fine, but be careful what you ask for.
Definitely. So what do you think of that, Mark?
Interesting.
Nice, isn't it?
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, but they're not like that with me. Kind of clump me around the ear and say, get on with it. I think it's because I'm so mischievous, because I am. I'm not I am so naughty, and are hard to control. So maybe that's why I don't get the same treatment as you.
See, I haven't.
Think I'd like it anyway.
I haven't experienced any of that because I feel for the last year and a half I've been feeling so blocked. Whether it's because of some of the stuff that I've been going through personally or whatever, but. Yeah, I just feel totally blocked off and distant from all of it, where I used to be, fairly in tune.
Well, I've gone through those dark of the soul times too, and you become when you come out of that. Hopefully, it won't last very long for you. I've experienced that twice in my life, and it was really in situations where I kind of gave in to fear for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And I think they move in the lower vibration, old energies will move in and take advantage of that, and create emotional problems and that type of thing. But I've had those times when I felt blocked and felt like I couldn't get any kind of information at all. Coming through, but it'll pass, I believe.
Hope so. It's been long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you are still going through quite a bit, aren't you? Let's face it, Connie going and one thing or another.
Yeah. And the medical issues in my family and whatnot, yeah. And then, of course, being stuck here at home. Can't go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's it. For all of us, that's really depressing at the moment.
That's a collective experience at this time for everybody, isn't it? Yeah.
But we were talking, was it last week? Have you noticed, Stephen, that time has sped up?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You've noticed it too?
It feels like that to me, definitely.
Yeah. You think being stuck indoors with nothing to do all day long would be, the days would drag, but that's going past so fast.
Yeah, I don't understand it myself, but I agree with it totally. And it's an unusual time in everybody's lives. What I decided to do in the beginning of all this was just tune it all out. So it could be just the worst thing going on right now, and I would not know anything about it. I'm paying attention to the guidelines and following that, especially as a massage therapist. I wear a mask, and we were lucky enough to open up here in Tennessee around Memorial Day. So I've been working in that field since then. I've been out on investigations, always wear a mask, and my partners wear a mask. And so we've kind of gotten back a little bit towards our old lives and normalcy. But it's quite an unusual experience. I don't think anybody's gone through anything quite like this. And I think it's pointed out to people what's important in their lives, family and being with other people. And when you're deprived of that, you really realize it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It really becomes heavy.
But plus, with everything else that's going on in the world right now, and all the civil unrest, and the political unrest, it's such an insane, crazy time right now in itself. The energy level is just so negative.
Yeah, well, like I said, I just tune it all out. I've actually used this time to start writing about my spirit rescue experiences. So I'm working on a book. And about halfway through that. So it's been a blessing in that sense for me that I've had time to actually devote to that. And it's something I've wanted to do for many, many years and just never got around to it. So I think you make of it what you want to make of it, It's definitely pointed out some important things in our lives.
Yeah. It's like... It is very, very weird. You're just aware more of everything that's going on around you. But this time speed, this speeded up time, just, sometimes I get up in the morning and it's time to go to bed, and I think, Chris, I haven't done nothing yet. It's gone by.
How do you attribute that to? What do you attribute it to? I mean, have you gotten any information from your guides or anything about that?
No,
or is it actually speeding up or what?
Well, it's speeding up. I'm sure it's speeding up. everybody I talk to about it say the same thing, that they felt it as well.
See, and she ignores her guides half the time anyway. They try to tell her something, and she tells them, bug off, leave me alone.
I do.
As she says, she can't be bothered.
Yeah, I do.
They're trying to help you, you know.
But it's so true, isn't it? You know, sometimes I just can't be bothered and I just say, bug off. Yeah. Talk to you tomorrow.
Well,
don't bother with me with that right now.
Well, we are coming up on the end of the program here, Stephen. So tell people where they can find your group and how they can get in touch with you, especially within the Memphis area, if anybody has any issues and they want to contact you.
Okay. Our website is memphisghostinvestigations.com. That's plural. Or you can go to memphisspiritrescue.com, and it'll take you to the same place. We have a Facebook page, and if you punch in Memphis Ghost Investigations and Spirit Rescue, it'll take you to that Facebook page. We also have a phone number in our area. It's area code 901-877-8406. So anybody's invited to email us, call us, text us, leave a message, and we always get back within 24 hours. We cover an area that's about a 150-mile radius from Memphis, and that includes western Tennessee, eastern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, and parts of Alabama, Missouri, Kentucky, and Louisiana. But we'll travel further than that. We did a 600-mile round trip one time over to East Tennessee to help a family because the children were being terrorized by some spirits there, which turned out to be benign. They were mistaken about what was going on. It was a lady who had died in a fire, and she was disfigured, but she was showing herself to the children, and they thought it was a monstrous type thing. So we actually helped her cross over. So it was good. It was good to go over there and help her, and also to help those children to understand what was going on.
And all the work you do, it's like what we used to do. You don't take a penny for it, no?
Never have taken a penny in 18 years. No.
Don't.
So it's all free. And actually, when people try to pay us, we have a favorite charity here in Memphis, Tennessee. You may have heard of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital that works try to find a cure for children's cancer. So we have had clients that will donate to St. Jude's in our name or just make a donation. So we always ask them to do that if they really want to show their gratitude, but we don't take any payment. Yeah.
That's the same way I used to work. Exactly the same way.
Well, you're working with souls. I mean, you know, how can you put a price tag on that?
No.
Right. Yeah. It's just, it seems wrong to me to go into someone's home and do that kind of work or do clearing work and charge for it.
Yep.
So I was never guided to take.
I'm quite surprised the distance you go, you know.
150 miles? Well, we've got...
Well, even up to 600 at one point.
Well, you know, we could have probably done that work remotely, but sometimes you almost have to be, the people have to see the work being done. You know what I mean? For it to be effective for them to really understand and to really believe what's going on. That you almost have to be there on site. So I always kind of weigh that and whether or not it's worth the travel time or what. And also that was the first road trip that the three of us had done together, so it gave us time to get more acquainted with each other.
Oh, that's good.
And so it was a nice trip.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got to leave it there.
Yep, we have come to the end of the show. So, Stephen, thank you very much for coming on. It's been great talking with you tonight.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And want to thank everyone for tuning in to another edition of Paranormal UK Radio Show, the flagship show here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And
you show off.
Yeah.
You can do it all in one go.
And for those people who may have been wondering, yes, we did have some trouble with our streaming server last week. We've got it all fixed, so we should now be able to catch us back on our radio station at paukradio.com, as well as streaming on TuneIn Radio and iTunes, Stitcher, and our archive shows on Podbean. So, and where else can people find us, Irene?
Stream Live.
Yep.
Oh, just about everywhere, people.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, and we will be back next week with another brand new show. So, everyone, you stay safe out there, and we'll catch you next time. Have a great evening.
Okay, bye.